Rainwater isn't the same as stormwater, right? Rainwater is what falls from the sky and waters our plants. But once it hits our roof or hits our driveway or our sidewalks or our streets, it can't soak into the ground, right? Because that's a hard surface. It's an impervious surface. It runs off. Stormwater is that water that runs off these impervious surfaces. And it has to be managed, because if it's not directed to the appropriate places, water will go where it wants to go, and sometimes that's right through your house. So we have this stormwater system in place in order to prevent our homes and businesses and schools from being flooded. I have to kind of explain that, if you live in core Norman, stormwater management looks one way, right? You see a lot of concrete, you see a lot of the hard infrastructure, you're gonna see storm inlets and things like that. But if you live over in 10 Mile Flat, or you live out near Lake Thunderbird, you don't have curb and gutter, you don't have storm drain inlets, right? But that doesn't mean you don't have stormwater infrastructure. Instead, what you're gonna see a lot of are open channels and drainage ditches and culverts and bridges. So that doesn't mean it doesn't need to be maintained, it's just maintained in a different way than it is here in core Norman. The amount of funding that's needed for stormwater is growing, and it's just not available in our general fund right now. If the city could fund it with general fund, I think they would, but we've come to the realization that it's just not there right now without having to make some decisions on what wouldn't be funded in order to fund the growing stormwater needs. So that's really why we need a stormwater utility. We have 3 crews for the city of Norman, and the city of Norman is 190 square miles. So if you think about how many miles of streets we have, there is stormwater infrastructure either on one side of that street, below that street, or on both sides of that street in the case of drainage ditches, right? So multiply however many miles of streets we have by 2 and add in creeks and streams and open channels, and we have 3 crews. And one of those crews is a street sweeping crew. So they don't even maintain the infrastructure in that way. They're out sweeping the streets every day. So we have 2 dedicated crews to infrastructure maintenance for the entire 190 square miles. That is not enough people to do any kind of preventative maintenance. Essentially, what we're able to do right now with our crews is react to complaints. We don't have the ability right now to camera our lines to get an idea of what they look like on the inside and start to, develop a time frame for replacement. So the Vision for Norman package is really 2 general obligation bonds and a stormwater utility. And the question is, well, how do these things work together? Well, when you put in roadways, when we do some of these projects that are being proposed for the transportation pond, you're going to notice that some of the things that they're also including in what will be done with those projects are stormwater improvements, right? They go hand in hand. If you're going to increase capacity on your roadway, you're either modifying the current stormwater system or you're putting in a new system in order to deal with the runoff that was being handled by that roadway and the new runoff that will need to be handled by that roadway. Once we start to get the ball rolling, what you're going to start to see, should both the utility and the bond pass, you're going to start to see infrastructure improvement. Right, and where you're going to see that is you're going to see that at major crossings where our urban streams and our roadways cross. There's the potential to upsize those crossings. Areas where we've had flooding, We're going to have to start to address that infrastructure. So we'll start to get some of those projects accomplished. It's taken, I think, Norman a little bit longer than others to establish their fees, mainly because of the uniqueness of Norman. It's in our charter that our citizens vote to approve the establishment or increase of any fee that the city establishes, our utility fee. So our citizens have to vote to approve this. We have to make sure we have the right plan for Norman's diverse needs, and I really think they've done it with this plan.